Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to another edition of the Supercoach Hub Classic Podcast for round 26. Joined this evening by myself, Brent Hampton, formerly of the BG on GameDay podcast, and co-hosting this evening with the man, The Myth. How are you this evening, mate?
Not too bad, mate. Just soaking all the carnage of the last weeks and looking forward to it's probably going to be a very interesting week in the Supercoach world.
Absolutely, mate. Only 2 rounds to go, obviously, 26 and 27. I've got hopefully some head-to-head grand finals this week, mate. But yeah, first 27-round season as well, with the Dolphins obviously coming in. How have you fared this season?
I fared all right. I think I'm sitting just outside the top 400 at the moment, but
Nice.
I think the biggest part of my season this year, I've been a bit more in the community, been in that Andrew Johns Cup. So with the Secret Society, we've done really well this year at the top of that. So I really enjoyed getting part of that side of it this season. Hasn't been my best, but I'm still pretty happy sitting well inside the top 1,000 with just 2 rounds to go. How about yourself?
Yeah, nice, mate. Actually, I'm in the Podmasters chat, and they see the updates that Glenn puts out around the Joey Johns Cup there, and you guys have been smashing it all year pretty much, so well done. Yeah, mate, I have been a Supercoach absolute tragic for a number of years now. I never really finished too well overall. I've had one top 1,000 finish, if I'm honest. Absolutely fanatical about it, but never comes to fruition with the results. But seem to be going all right this season. I'm sitting at just over in the top 800, 812.
Yep.
And just sort of the right trajectory at the right time of the year. I've just sort of been zoned in the last sort of few weeks, which is good. So we'll see. Hopefully I can hold on to a top 1,000 and maybe even a PB, mate. That'd be nice, but it won't count me chickens. Plenty can happen in the last couple of rounds, and the scoring's been so volatile, mate. There's been some big scores the last sort of month or two, hasn't there? Big 13, 1,400s. You can score 1,200 and still get whooped by a couple hundred if you've missed some of the big guys. So, yeah, it's been a pretty epic season.
It's been all about that, right? You just have to keep getting those big scores. If you miss too many of those common ones in 1 week, you can just go backwards so quickly. I've had a couple big jumps, both red arrows and green arrows. Luckily for my sake, it's been like yourself, mostly green over the past, really since post-Origin, so it makes it far more enjoyable when you're coming home with a wet sail.
Absolutely, mate. It's usually the opposite for me. I'm going the other way. So, yeah, it's been nice. I don't think it's anything different. Just got a couple of trades right at the right time of the year, and it's amazing. And obviously, getting those captains right has been some big ones the last couple of months as well. So if you've got them right, it's made a pretty big difference too, obviously, as it does always.
Absolutely. Reflecting on this.
Still live in the season. Sorry, what was that, mate?
I was going to say reflecting on your season. Good moves, bad moves?
Yeah, I was just actually having a look at that. I guess one that hasn't worked out too well on the end. I ended up burning my last trade a couple of weeks ago, so I only had one sort of following round 22, and I sat on it for a while, and I ended up going Teddy to Gutho the week that Para played Brisbane. I think Gutho ended up scoring 20 that week, so it ended up all right, but then obviously it killed me last week with Teddy was going postal when he still went 120 odd or whatever it was, but he missed the last 20 and now obviously won't play this week against the Tigers, and it got to the point where I was weighing up like Latrell or him, and even guys like Meaney, but I went, I'll go Teddy, I'll back him in. And I mean, he's ended up faring a bit better than Latrell now, given Latrell missed round 27 and obviously this week, but it hurt. And I reckon it cost me, I think I lost about 4 or 5 semis on the weekend. And that last 20 minutes that Teddy missed probably stung because I didn't lose by many in a few of them either, mate. So that's probably not worked out too well recently. But apart from that, I don't know. I think I've just got guys like KP in at the right time, Adam Fanor-Blake, just some guys that have been pretty good, especially in the last couple of months, that I just happened to get them in at the right time, fortunately enough, mate. What about yourself?
Yeah, I look back on it, and the clear best trade that I've had this year will just always be Hines round 4.
Mm-hmm.
Getting that 180 captain on the pack really just, I think I went from 10K to 200. So it's Supercoach is not a chaser's game. It's very much a leader's game. So to be up the pointy end pretty quickly, probably should have done a bit more with it. Plenty of other moves that have been good. Chance right before his 150, Ponga right before the 180. Getting a couple of those just at the right time, like you said, it's been good. Looked up bad trades. Welch and Sony Luke after round 1 were shockers
Yeah,
when we look back on it.
the Sonny
And
Luke, he's burnt a few, hasn't he?
he's still stuck in my side.
AE
We'll be there
nightmare as well, ain't he?
Yeah, he's been an AE nightmare. He's been a real pain. So that's probably the worst trade. I also had a very bad time with Lockie Miller.
How could you predict that?
I started him, and then I traded him out round 3 before he went berserk. Traded him back in round 11 for him to get dropped 2 weeks later. Not fond of the block from a Supercoach perspective this year.
It just sums it up, doesn't it? Like, there's no logical reason to it. The bloke was in, one of the form. You could pick him in the centre wing, obviously playing fullback. Form centre wingers, everyone needed him. He was pumping out the scores, and then bang, all of a sudden he's gone. You don't see him again for the rest of the season. He's probably off to England now. So it just sums up Supercoach. It's a bit of a fickle game at times, isn't it? There's no logic to it. You can, make your best educated guess based on whatever you want, data and draws and all that. But sometimes just, anything can happen out there, eh?
All about timing, right? You just got to get that right. Jump off at the right time, jump on them at the right time.
That's it, mate. How you looking in your head-to-heads? You got in a few grand finals, or what's happening?
Yeah, well, I had a really good week the first week of the finals. So I jumped into a lot of prelims and got home in a few. Got home in my only cash one. So
nice.
In the final for that this week, not a whole lot of cash, just a casual one with a bunch of mates. But
nice.
I've been the Cinderella. I've been the bridesmaid. Sorry about that head-to-head comp. I reckon I've been runner-up about 5 or 6 out of the 10 years, and really hoping this is the year that I can bring home the trophy.
Well, hopefully, mate, doing well overall. It just sums it up with head-to-heads as well. It doesn't matter how good you're going overall. You can just cop that stiff head-to-head or whatever it is. It always happens too often, doesn't it?
That's it. What about yourself? In any?
I'm playing a few cashies generally. As I said, I ended up probably, even though he scored 120, that Teddy going off with 20 to go probably hurt me a bit in the end. I think most of them I needed a bit of a score from Carraz on the weekend to bring me home. He did all right, but I need a little bit more out of him, so I missed quite a few. I'm only in one cashie, but I reckon I lost maybe 4 or 5 of them by 50 or less. A few of them by less than 20, so it was a bit of a bit stingy, but that's always the way. Hopefully, I can just bring home a bit of a PB in the overall. I'll be happy, and still I'm in a few drafts as well, so I enjoy my drafts. So I'll focus my attention on those as well, mate.
Playing to focus on with the week ahead.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely, make the most of the last 2 weeks. It'll be good that once it's done and just sit back and enjoy finals footy, but you miss it pretty quickly as well, eh?
Absolutely.
Shout out to the Supercoach Hub results. So a bit of a plug for some of the top ranked members. So 58 members from the Hub in the top 1K. Shout out to Here Come the Bears, Glenn, in number 4 overall. So that's huge. Blue Rados, Tessa in number 6 overall. And Lux for Losers, Edward in 13. So some Hub guys, Hub members killing it at the moment, which is massive, mate. And top score, the Hub was a 15.33 from the Willies, Toby. So that's an absolute monster as well. So, like I said, I think I scored 1,300 odd this week, and you would have given me a toweling up. So, shout out to those guys.
Good week to go big, right?
Yeah, mate, absolutely. I think we move on to team list, mate. Had much of a look at them for this week at this point, just noting it is Tuesday still.
May as well go from the top, right?
Start sounds good.
I didn't think there wasn't too much from these news. Tyrone Peachy's still there at centre, so any people that are still holding on to him will get another play, and those that got Tago will be absolutely hurting. It seems like that injury just keeps extending and extending.
He was looking awesome as well. You had to have him, and a few people got him in, and then it's come back to bite him, hasn't it? But some upside there for Peach again. Like thinking about draft, you probably might have been able to pick him up in a couple. He was probably sitting in there. Obviously, Bizzer back as well, mate. You got Bizzer or?
No, haven't owned him all season, but you got to think Eels are right for the slaughter here, and Bizzer's always going to be a good shot for a try on that edge.
Yeah, so I do have Bizzer, so it'll be nice to have him back out. How are you faring more generally this week? I know with obviously this, we'll get to it, but Garrick will be out possibly for the rest of the season, definitely this week. Obviously, the Rabbitohs are not playing this weekend. How are you faring numbers overall this week?
Yeah, look, my numbers could be better, but they're not dire. So I think I think I might have about 15 okay plays pre-trades, but I still got 2 in the bank, which I'm planning to burn this week. The
Nice.
17 will include guys like Ronnie and Welch that I'm not thrilled about playing, but I imagine a lot of people are going to be stuck playing Sony Lukes, other guys like that, the Brendan Piacoras, a lot of players that might just dish up a 10 or 20 pointer. So it's going to be a few hurting, I think.
Yeah, that's massive. I don't know how you've got that sort of self discipline to still have trades left, mate. That's more impressive to me than anything else. But you're right. I think it could be a pretty big round in the overall stakes, and obviously with the head to heads as well. Yeah, I'm actually not faring too bad. I've got a couple of spares after I've selected my 17. I think, like I said, I got Ronnie in that side, so Bizza coming in will be nice. And I've ended up with IPAP and Johnny Bateman in the back row, so I sort of have to pick one of those two each week, which I'm getting wrong every week at the moment, which is always fun. But yeah, it worked out all right for a bit of depth. I haven't been braining it or anything, but yeah, I'm not looking too bad, thankfully. So as long as I've got Shuey at 5'8" for some reason, that's probably been one of my worst trades of the year. I've ended up with Shuey early and then haven't got him out. If Munster goes, I'll be in big trouble, but I only have 2 AEs there and they shouldn't be too bad, so I'll take it. Anyway, get back to the team list, mate. So Bizza back for the Panthers, probably not much else written in from that one. Obviously, Matto back into the starting side, which would be nice for anyone with him.
I'm good at lock.
Hopgood at lock, yeah, he moved back in from the edge. So that'd be nice for probably all owners all around for any of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd be stoked with Hopgood back in the middle, although I think he did pretty well on the edge last week anyway. But I think the big question for most people this week with this game is, do you put the captaincy or vice captaincy on Nathan Cleary, or do you look elsewhere?
Yeah, it's one of those moves, right? If you go all out and put it straight on Cleary, you might be able to get a bit of a jump. There might be a lot of people with a free loop opportunity, or they might not have much to lose because they're going to cop a Sonny Luke or whatever. They have to play a Sonny Luke or whatever anyway. So possibly some free loop opportunities, mate. Are you giving much away at this point? Are you leaning in a certain way? Are you going to give us any intel at this point?
Yeah, I think it's one of those cases, right? I'm always looking out for when the pack is going off a player. And it seems like the pack at the moment is off Nathan Cleary a little bit as a captaincy option, which means I'm more interested in Nathan Cleary as either VC or C. I'll be looking at the numbers later in the week, but if he's dropped down to under that 20-30% VC and C combined, I'm more interested in taking a swing. He's still got that big upside potential. He's got a 150 in him. I was a non-owner up until last week, and I've been scared of that 150. It's coming. I'm going to be shocked if it doesn't. If it doesn't, he'll probably put up like a 150 in the finals or something like that. But yeah, he's well in my thoughts. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, there's lots of options this week as well. Obviously, people will be looking at some potentially, dare I say, a couple of those Warriors players up against the Dragons for some head-to-head action, possibly in overall head-to-head grand finals. There's probably some people tempted to look at some Warriors. You obviously got Joey Manu at fullback. We'll get to that against the Tigers now. KP's obviously in some pretty good form. So yeah, I don't mind it. I'm not too sure. As I said, I'm not in too many head-to-head grand finals, so it doesn't matter too much. But I've been burned a little bit. I looped Ponga the week they played Canberra when he scored 122 and got the HIA. I thought he'll still update nicely, and Cleary came out and went 110 odd. Anyway, he originally went 120, downdated a bit, and then it was someone else. There was someone else, I think, the week after that, same thing. I've looped, and someone else has gone postal, and it cost me in the end because I had Pasami Salo on the bench. But I don't know. I don't know. I think if I'm not going Cleary, it probably is like a Joey Manu or someone like that. So I'll see. If the weather's good, Para have been pretty ordinary, so it's tempting.
They could be up for it though. Battle of the West. It's
true.
The rivalry, these derby games sometimes can be unpredictable.
It's true. And that said, I mean, I thought Cleary didn't look like he did a great deal last week, to be fair. Not as his typical involvement, he's still pumped out a 93. So, yeah, it's an interesting prospect. We'll have to see how we go, eh?
Yeah.
Moving on.
Warriors games.
Well, that's
Warriors games for the VC, right?
Yeah,
Who
I
do you
mean, you
like?
mentioned you got Chance. You still got Chance?
Yeah, still got chance.
He looks unreal feeding off the back of SJ out the back there. Obviously feeding DWZ as well. If you've got CNK, DWZ, it's a nice combo. I think I looked at both of them when I had a few trades left about a month ago, but they were sort of leaning into their buy, and I almost regret not burning getting them both in because they just look like they've got so many points in them. Obviously, DWZ is a bit of a risk because you need the tries out of him, but they're scoring tries. And yeah, the Dragons on paper don't look great. They put up a bit of a fight against the Storm last week, but you'd have to think over there with the Warriors sort of trying to bring home the top four, there's probably going to be some points in that one. The Warriors will probably put them to the sword. What do you reckon?
That's what I'm thinking. It's also been a few weeks where the Warriors haven't quite clicked. We've expected them to really go on with a win, and it just hasn't happened over the past month. They really had to fight. They've had to grind out these wins. We expected them to smash the Titans, didn't happen. Expected them to smash the Tigers, didn't happen. Expected them to smash Manly, and it hasn't happened now. So it feels like they'd really want to get one of these performances right leading into the finals. And last home game of the season, granted they'll probably have a finals match there, but last home one against a side that looks to have really chucked in the towel for the season, already looking ahead to next year. With a week left edge, that Johnson, Chance, DWZ combo could just feast.
Well, that's the other one as well. SJ, obviously, mate, that was probably a trade I didn't mention. I ended up going Hines to Hines to Cleary in round 21 because I liked the Warriors draw. It was obviously a massive trade, and I lost sleep over it. And Hines has done a bit of damage since, but it hasn't been as bad as it probably could have been. He did more damage against the Cows than he did the Titans, but yeah, SJ's hit a purple patch. I don't know how long he's been playing for, but it's the SJ of old. There was years where SJ would, score hundreds when scoring 100 was unheard of. He's turned back the clock and he's looking like he's probably going to go close to the Dally M too, mate. So he's probably not a bad shout for a captaincy as well, potentially just for something a little bit different as well. I don't know, it's probably not that different really, is it? If you're going to go Cleary though, isn't it?
The thing that turns me off SJ at the moment is, and it's actually the reason I traded him out last week. So I went SJ to Cleary last week after riding Hines and SJ for the rest of the post-origin part. He doesn't have the goal kicking right now. Pompey's got the goal kicking, and if you think about it, if the Warriors put on 8 or 9 tries this week, that could be 30 points difference.
Absolutely.
What he could have had. I think it really reduces that ceiling. He's got that 150, even a 180 in him, I think, if it all went right. But is it going to be high enough, like you mentioned already? You can lose points off a loop. I reckon he's more likely for about a 100 to 120 this week rather than that 150 plus just due to the kicking alone.
No, good shout too. I don't actually know why it is. Is he a bit of tight in the hemis or something? I don't actually know what the reason is. They're just trying to look after him a bit. Quad nickels, all right. Yeah, good call. It does hurt. You obviously look at Ponga as well last week. He couldn't hit the side of a barn. So, he could have got another 20 points on that score last week, KP, but he, like I said, he was kicking terribly. But I guess the other thing as well, obviously, if you're going to look at Cleary for a VC or a C, you're not looking at SJ. So, a bit of a call to make there as well. What else we got there? Any news? Zach Lomax back for the Dragons. He's been pretty good as well. I mean, I can't have him in that Dragons side personally, mate, in Classic. Just, but he has been pretty good, to be fair. Anyone that did jump on him, he's paid dividends, but he'll be back.
I think he's one for the Black Book next year.
Absolutely. Whether he ends up staying with the Dragons or not, I always called when there was the fallout there with... Was it with Griffin while Griffin was still there that he'd end up at the Chooks?
He's been in, and then there's been some comments about him maybe playing fullback. So I think he's one to watch for next year. But this year, if you've got him, I think it's going to be a fantastic play. If he comes out with that same intensity that he has the last few games that he's been fit, he'll be a great play. I'm not sure I'd be looking to buy a Dragons centre in the last 2 weeks, though.
Yeah, not with one of your last trades either, I wouldn't have thought. So fair call. Anything else out of that one before we move on to the Finns Cows, mate?
No, we can move on to the Finns Cows, and AKA the game non-drink water owners will be watching behind the couch.
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? Drinky's been that guy. I don't know, you couldn't call it going to the radar. I've been sort of a bit off the scene a bit since we finished up last year. I've sort of been in my own bubble, but he's been absolutely braining it, hasn't he? I'm not even sure what his ownership is, but he's been a pretty big, I don't know if you can call him pod, but definitely an alternative option that's done some damage, hasn't he?
Yeah, have a look at his numbers. I still don't think he's that highly owned in the top top 1%, just because by the time everyone clicked into gear and went, oh, this guy's killing it, he was too expensive and
He
nobody
had
could get
some
on.
big tons within a month. Yeah, I'm just looking on stats now. He had 4 tons in a month from round 13 or 5 weeks, and a 95 in there, and he hit upwards of 900,000, and then a million plus for the next month after that. So yeah, he's been killing it. I had him in a couple drafts, so it was sort of nice to have him, but yeah, he's been massive, hasn't he? And definitely not a guy a lot of people probably looked at, but
Only owned by 30 or even less, 28.9% of the top 1% own Drinkwater. So
okay.
he is a massive pod still at the top.
Yeah, he's big. This will be a big game, for sure. What do you think? What do you reckon the Dolphins will put up a bit of a fight? Obviously, almost a bit of a not a rivalry, but a bit of a battle of the Queensland sides up there at Suncorp.
Yeah, they're hard to predict a little bit because Wayne Bennett coach side, you don't expect them to roll over, but the 17 that they're putting out, it's just not as strong. The outside backs, particularly, you got New and Jennings in the centres and Bostock on one of the wings. You got to think Drinkwater could be carving up that edge.
Obviously, Cody in the front line is obviously plays a bit of 6 and 1 and wherever 9 even at times as well. But at times he can be a bit of a target on those edges as well if he's in the 6. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Hammer back to fullback, mate. I think is that this week. He's going back to fullback this week.
Hammer back to fullback. Nico in the halves. Graham still at 9. Lemlelu returns on the edge. So they get a bit of troops back compared to last week.
I actually got on Nikorima. I guess he was a bit of a pod for sure. You'd have to think he was a bit of a pod. I don't even know when it was, but just because I could pick him at hooker when it wasn't really sure who else to go at hooker, it was almost like a bit of a dead position there. Cookie wasn't really doing too well. If you had JMK, he was going pretty good, but it was sort of like I had Harry Grant, and then for some reason it was just the timing was right, the price was right. He hasn't killed it, but he hasn't been terrible. He's had some 40s and 90s in there, but I'm not too sure about playing this one in the 6 because I'm thinking maybe the Cowboys bounce back after last week as well, and they need to sort of stay in the hunt for the top 8.
Yeah, he's been a great pickup. To be honest, he's probably been that number 2 hooker behind Grant most of the season. Maybe up until Cook's big ton last week, especially if you carried him over the buys. I remember him scoring a bunch of good scores. I looked at him really early on when he got to that starting spot. So I'm like, maybe I could swap Sonny Luke directly for him and pocket a bit of cash. Kicking myself that I didn't make that move, but he's done a job.
He has. He really has. I'm trying to look when I actually got him in. I can't even. I got him in round 13 apparently. So that was pretty early on. For some reason, I liked him, but yeah, I mean, he hasn't brained it as I hoped. He might have a couple of tons. I even thought last weekend he might have tonned up, but he's been all right. There's been a couple 90s out of him to take it, but anyway, I don't think you'd be looking at him at this point. But just a bit of a sit or start option for me this week. I'm still a bit on the edge with him.
I think it's a tough one. I'd be, depending on your other options, I'd probably be sitting him, like you said. It looks like a Cowboys bounce back game. Looks like they should be up for this, you'd think, but you never know. Wayne Bennett coach side have learned enough to know they can be unpredictable.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Anyway, we'll stop listening to my sorrows this week. Move on to the 3 o'clock game on the Saturday, mate. The Storm taking on the Titans. Some big trading options. Obviously, Elise Katoa last week. He's back playing 80 now, mate. He's been back from that injury or the eye injury or whatever it was that kept him out as well. So he looked brilliant last week and obviously rewarded anyone that jumped on with the big 120. I still think he's an option this week.
Absolutely.
Nick Amini, mate. Obviously, some pretty big news with Paps on that extended bench. Do you own Meany, or would you look at Meany given what's evolving with the Paps with the last couple of trades to finish the year at all?
I own him, so I've been on since just before his buy. I think it was a bit disappointing up until that 120 2 weeks ago, and that kind of righted all his wrongs for all of us owners that have hung on and played him week in, week out. No, not too many disaster scores. I think not many under 50, but a lot around that mark. Yeah. So it's just plodding along, but that one big score brings it right up. I was hoping to get one more game with no Pappy involvement, but I think there's enough risk there that I wouldn't be trading him in if I was a non-owner, if not just for this week, but next week you'd have to think there's a better chance Pappy starts if that's the plan with him. But I'm hopeful that he gets 60 minutes, maybe Munster comes off early, and Meany spends the last 20 at 5'8". That's what I'm hoping for. It's probably optimistic as a Meany owner.
No, fair call. And I actually, when I was sort of saying I burnt my last trade on Gutho to Teddy in round, whenever it was, I think 2012, whatever it was, I looked at Meany and I couldn't go him based on the numbers that he had because it was, he looks dangerous and he obviously kicks the goals. You can pick him at centre wing, but he just hadn't knuckled anything down. So that 120 actually stung me because it hurt me in a couple of head-to-heads that week too. So, I was sort of very scared of him last week as well. I'd probably take a 76 as a non-owner because that could have been anything. But this one's another big one. I think you'll get away with him this week. I'd be a bit surprised if Paps took any time off him this week. But yeah, as you said, I think maybe next week, and who knows whether Munster ends up on some baby leave this week late or something. Who would know? And this team list could change and look like anything, couldn't they? But I think the Meany owners might be able to get away with it, and then it might more be something just that happens at finals that affects the Storm more than anything else. But I don't know. What would you do? I mean, it's pretty big. Obviously, Paps at 100% adds a big difference to that side. Just talking footy-wise, mate, what would you be looking to do with Paps? Do you reckon it's too disruptive for him at this point of the season, given how they're going, or would you be trying to get him back in if he's looking all right?
I think they've got to go for it, to be honest. I don't think they win the comp with Meany there at fullback. Speaking from a purely footy perspective, I think they've got to try and get Pappy in there. They've had a couple chances against Penrith this year, and they've just been dismantled. I don't really see them being able to compete with these guys. The forward pack probably needs they need a bit more X factor, and Pappy with his speed, if he's anywhere near 100% fit, anywhere near getting to his best, what it can be, they've got to inject him in there. And it's disappointing for Meany because he's been solid, but he's not Pappenhausen.
I agree, mate. There's nothing quite like it's sort of like a fit Tommy Turbo. They're really good for the game, and there's no one you really want to watch more. Like you look at like guys like Walsh now as well, Ponga. These are guys you want fit playing footy because when they're at their best, they're just brilliant to watch. And yeah, I think he adds a very different dynamic to them and makes them a big threat if he is fit because that pace is just so you can't buy speed.
No.
And Meany's no slug, and as I said, he's done a job. But Paps is a whole different ball game if he's fit. So it'll be interesting. Makes him a bit more dangerous because they got the side there. If you add him in there and he's good to go, they could push Penrith. I mean, Penrith are a pretty big call to take down. But if they're going to beat them, they definitely need Paps at one.
Yeah, I think so. I think there could be a few head-to-head finals this week. If you're behind it early, I think this could be a game to target. Titans with a couple more injuries, very much depleted. No Campbell, no Sami.
Yep.
Those edges look ripe to attack. That right edge has been really weak all year. So I think Xavier Coates, if you're looking bad early in your head-to-head, he could be one to keep an eye on.
One, mate, I totally agree. Even someone like a Munster potentially as a pod captain or something who would know. But have you had much of a look, mate, at Tino? Do you own Tino? What are your thoughts on Tino?
He's always a good option. I haven't owned him all year. I would have loved to be owning him. I actually looked at him in terms of trading this week. He's been in my thinking about, do I just get a front row forward that could probably just bust out 70 this week and then a ton against the Dogs next week? He can score a try, Tino. Play against his ex-club. We always like picking up a player against their ex-club because they seem to just find that extra leg. But if you can get him, I'd get him, but I'm still targeting those high upside outside backs at this stage of the season.
I think that's probably the thing. It's a bit of a luxury trade, and you want those guys with those possible 150 pluses in them or whoever it'll be. So, yeah, good call. Moving on to the next one, mate. Chook's taking on the Tigers at Allianz on Saturday evening at 5:30. Obviously, Teddy will miss this one on the back of the concussion. The Cat 1 was a Cat 2 initially, and I was hoping at the time he'd come back on. Couldn't have been further from the truth as it ended up. So Joey Manu back to fullback, mate. So I think a lot of people probably own Joey Manu, but looms as a bit of a captaincy option, obviously, against the Tigers, who they're probably easy to write off, but yeah, as I said, I have to think that there'll be a few people looking at Joey Manu this week. Big news with Sammy Walker back in the side as well, which is interesting. They're going to push for the finals. They need to win this and obviously win next week against the Rabbitohs. Obviously, he was injured, but he got dropped on form a bit earlier in the year, and you can't probably touch him Supercoach-wise, but it's interesting to see him back in the side.
I think it's good for Sammy Walker and it's good for the Roosters. I think he provides a bit of an X factor. I doubt the plan was to drop him all season. I think it was meant to be a bit of a rocket, and then he'd come back knowing that he's going to play for his spot, and he'd show that form that we've seen from him in previous years. I think the big relevance here, does he take the goal kicking off Suaalii?
That's an interesting one. I would have thought, just because of the longevity of, Sammy will be there next season and would have been their first choice kicker had he been fit, and Suaalii's been out. I would think Sammy takes it, but yeah, who knows? We won't know till game day, I guess, probably, unless we hear beforehand. But Suaalii's been good, hasn't he?
He's been great, and he's really kicked in a gear for I know a few people were looking at him a few weeks ago. I only know one or two that went for him, but he's really lit it up as the Roosters' attack has started to click a little bit more. And it would hurt for those that do own him if he lost the goal kicking, because that could be an extra 20 points this week. The Roosters are hot, and they could really do a number on the Tigers.
With Teddy out as well, he fed Joey a bit last week as well, a few balls. So I think Joey Manu's got a bit more of a tendency to go himself as well. But yeah, so
he loves it, doesn't he?
He does, which is great for Supercoach. But whether or not that has an impact on Suaalii, we'll wait and see.
I don't think there's anything more frightening in Supercoach than being a non-owner when Joey Manu goes to dummy half close to the try line.
You just know he's going to have a big day. Talk about white line fever, mate. So
I switched him out a few weeks ago for Latrell, so I don't own him at the moment. He's on my thoughts big time for this week. I think that was a couple of weeks ago where the defensive line was scrambled. It was 10 metres out, and Joey Manu went somehow from he's going to bloody score here, and went down the short side. He's scary.
Yeah. He just does it. It's pretty much that thing, mate. Like, not owning him. I'd rather just own him when he scores 30, because it's just inevitable that he's going to score tries at some point, and he's just too damaging of a ball runner. He hasn't been bad in the last 6 weeks, but he's been pretty good over the last sort of 10 weeks. But yeah, it'd be nice to see him go postal in this one. Sorry to say, mate. Hopefully you make the right call there, but I'll be hoping he goes large in this one for sure. As I'm sure a lot of people will be. The other guy that sort of caught my attention, and more just for draft, mate, is he looks like he's better and better every week. It's no secret, but Billy Smith, they seem to feed him a heap of ball. As a centre, I felt like when I was watching him the last few weeks, I don't know, his base doesn't look that great on paper, but I feel like they've just feed him plenty of ball, and he's a bit of a handful. He's always a bit like that, sort of Joey Manu build, if dare I say it.
He's finally getting an extended run in first grade, and everyone's finally getting to see why the Roosters liked him so much, why the hype was there around him, why I said give him a chance every time he's fit. We're starting to see it, and he's looking better and better each week. Not a bad shout as a trade-in either.
Yeah, obviously he didn't do too well on the weekend, and as I said, as a centre, the base is generally not that great. But if he's hitting high 20s, early 30s for base as a centre, it's not too bad. But he just looks dangerous. Just passes the eye test for me. He's someone that's sort of just taken my attention when I've watched the Chooks the last sort of month or so. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can make a run and get into the finals, because I don't think Souths have been good. So I think they'll be. They're looking pretty good to sneak in there, I reckon.
I think you're on the money there, and I think at this stage of the season, we want to go eye test over stats anyway. It's time for stats, and last 2 rounds, who's looking good, who's firing, who looks ready to shut up shop. That's only going to come down to what we're seeing. Yeah,
that's it, mate. It's that whole go with your gut thing. Sometimes you just got to do what feels right, because when you don't and that comes off, you're absolutely filthy. So... anything else out of that one, mate, you want to mention about the Chooks or the Tigers?
Nah, we can move forward, I reckon.
Sweet. Interesting game on Saturday evening between the Raiders and the Broncos. Obviously a big one for the Raiders. Still not guaranteed to make the finals just yet. I think they'll need one more win and they'll sort of lock it in. But Broncos obviously pushing for that minor premiership as well. No Reynolds for the Broncos, but I thought that would play a bit of a bigger impact than it did. But they're a pretty well-oiled machine at this point of the year. They're looking like they're probably the next best after Penrith, aren't they?
Yeah, they're my team, and it's been a nice change. I was very unsure what we'd do this year. I think I said to a few people, you'll know how our season will go on the first half against Penrith away. And we took it to them, so that prediction's gone through, and we've been better than I thought. I'm not sure if we can push Penrith, but I think we can put the cleaners through the Raiders this week. I think more than us being good, I think the Raiders are a lot worse than what their ladder position shows.
I agree, mate. They've been horrible for what the pack they got on paper, and outside backs aren't amazing, but they're not. I mean, they're not great, but obviously no Whiten as well. But yeah, if I'm a Newcastle fan, if Newcastle make the 8, I want to be playing the Raiders. Obviously, but yeah, the emergence of Reece Walsh obviously this season, he's just come. Like, he's always going to be a freak, but I didn't expect him to sort of do what he's done this season. But Ezra, Cobbo, Staggs, Paddy Carrigan, obviously Payne Haas. There's a really good nucleus of young players there, and having A-Ray sort of steer them around has just been amazing for them. And being a Knights fan, I've got a bit of a rivalry with the Broncos coming in the same year, and most Broncos fans that I know are just absolute geese, mate, if I'm honest. You seem all right, which has been an exception to the rule, but they've been really good, as much as it pains me to say it. And Reece Walsh is an absolute pleasure to watch. So there's probably some people potentially looking at Reece Walsh as well, mate, to finish. What do you reckon about that shout? He's obviously just so Supercoach friendly. You think he's worth a look?
Yeah, he's on my radar, big time. I'm looking at players, particularly not just for this week, but next week as well. And there's not that many teams that I'm confident won't rest players next week. And Broncos, given they're coming off the bye, Thursday night game, so a bigger turnaround in terms of going into finals, still fighting for the minor premiership. And then add that, I think Broncos, put the cleaners through the Raiders. So, and if they do that, Walsh is going to feast. So I think he's definitely one to consider, especially with a lot of us not having a fullback. With Teddy gone, Latrell gone, a lot of people are going to be looking for one. I think Walsh could be the man.
Yeah, he's the one. I think he's matchup proof too. I don't care that they play Melbourne next week. He's just too dangerous. The way he skips on the outside of that, third man, that 3-man, or he just isolates defenders and creates too much space and just puts people in two minds. I don't think the draw matters for them. That said, I think they will roll the Raiders. But yeah, he's probably one of the ones I'm most scared of not owning this week, to be honest. And to be honest, it's probably a bit of a shame almost from a Supercoach perspective that A-Ray's there, because he'd be goal kicking otherwise. Once A-Ray moves on, he's going to be a must-have every year with the goal kicking as well, if provided he's injury-free, obviously. The kid's going to be an absolute freak. He already is, but I can't wait to see him over the next few years.
Not sure if he'll have the goal kicking, though. I think it might be Tony Staggs.
You reckon Staggs would have it off him?
I think he's kicked a few times this year. I think he kicked against the Cowboys most recently.
Yeah, okay. Very cool.
I think even Tony Staggs is a really good shout this week. Up against Jared Croker, that's a mismatch. If Staggs gets a bunch of early ball, plus has the goal kicking, that's another guy to look at, I reckon.
Yeah, don't mind it. He's the thing I don't like about Staggs, he obviously relies on tries, but I wish he would just go looking for the ball a bit more, because he's such a damaging ball runner. If he could just get that base up, you'd love him. But he hasn't been too bad in the last month either. He had a big 130 against South, but I don't mind that either. He can find the line, and yeah, old Toots, unfortunately, we said this about Toots last time they played him, and he did a bit of a number on him, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, Croker's really good. That was one of our worst performances of the season, and Raiders were up for it. Could be a repeat, absolutely.
It's getting cold down here too, mate. I'm from Canberra. It's not nice down here at the moment.
More of a traditional Raiders home game then. Nice and cold
on the Saturday evening.
To be there.
Hopefully it's not raining. We've got a bit rainy today as well, so might be something to have a look at as well. Keep an eye on the weather potentially.
Got to factor that in.
All right. Moving on from that one, mate. Nothing else on that one for yourself?
Nah, let's keep going. Paps and Horse are good plays again. I don't think anyone's benching them at this stage of the season. Not with the outs.
Have no need of them, and I hate watching them every week because they're just stat pigs. This points, they're scoring heaps, they're in everything, the bastards. So, agreed. Dogs taking on the Eagles, mate. Bit of a, I don't know if you call it a fizzer, but probably not the most Supercoach relevant one now. Obviously with Garrick out. That's
Or
it
is
on
he?
Hmm?
He's on that extended bench.
You reckon he's not? They're saying he got a broken back. Is that Mike Tyson? My back is broken. Spinal.
He gets named in the 22.
Come on.
I couldn't believe it myself.
Yeah,
It's
there
got to
you
be.
go. Well,
But
man.
what if
Guy's
he
got a
plays?
fractured back. Come on. Are they out there? They can't make finals. Surely just give the bloke a rest.
It makes sense to me just to let him have the early Mad Monday. Season's over, mate. Well, not going to push you, but he's there.
Right,
He's got to be there for a reason. But if he's playing, it's a day game against the leakiest side in the competition, and he's a goal kicker. So I think a lot of people, myself being one of them, stuck him between a rock and a hard place here because do you sell a guy that potentially plays the next two games with two plum matchups, or do you sell a guy that's missing the rest of the season?
It's one of those calls, isn't it? And he's a bit of money with him as well, so you could use it elsewhere if you got the trades too.
I think it's a case of work out the plan. With the reverse trade tool that we've got, you can always change now. If you're trading out a bunny, for me, for example, I might be trading out Alex Johnston. I can always change that to Garrick out on the Sunday if I get mail beforehand.
True.
We've got Ronaldo there as reserve the game after, who I don't really want to play versus Newcastle.
Yep.
Could then drop him if Garrick ends up playing. Have a look at your side, have a look at your options. Hopefully we get more mail come like Saturday, 24 hours cuts. I got to think he can't play, surely, but I want an option to get him back into my side if he's playing.
I haven't owned Garrick for a little while. I thought, I don't know. It's been hard. I definitely don't mind if he's out for the next couple of weeks. Then it'll hurt a few sides. But yeah, if you've got the trades, definitely have a think, and you'd probably be smart about it, as you said. Yeah. I must admit, I actually was looking forward to having Schuster for these last 2 weeks, even as bad as he's been. And of course, the bastard's not in the squad this year, but in this week. But anyway, moving on. I won't talk any more about Schuster.
I think it's still worth having a look at a couple of the Manly assets, just because Dogs this week, Tigers at home next week, probably Olakawatu and Saab, probably the two I'd be having a look at. I owned Ola myself, and I'm excited for his matchups the next two, and Saab's another one that's piqued my interest. All the ball you got to think is going to be going right with Jacob Arthur there and Daly Cherry Evans on the right. Their attack's going to go that way all day long. So those two could really feast. Yeah,
Saab's a good call. He's a huge pod to finish. He's been pretty good the last sort of month as well. So I like that. That'll be a big pod. Obviously a bit of risk there with him, but the matchups are good. Like I said, everything's going to the right. Ola's out on the right as well, so not a bad little combo out there if Ola's creating a bit of space outside of him. Hopefully Saab can benefit from that if you're going to go a little duo of Ola and Saab. I don't mind it. Probably even DCE. I think it's a bit hard to not own Hines, Cleary or SJ, but I mean, if you've got the balls to do it, credit to you.
I mean, if one of them was injured and you were trading, sure. Trading one of those guys out fit with the amount of carnage you've got. Maybe if you've got 4 trades left, could be worth the play, but I think there's other opportunities to make up points.
Yeah, I'm talking a bit of nonsense now, mate. It's getting late. Anything else you want to shout out from the doggies side at all, mate?
No, you can't bring in a doggy, surely.
Yeah, no, fair call. And to finish us off for round 26, it's the Knights taking on the Sharks in a massive game in the context of the 8, obviously, on Sunday afternoon down in Newcastle. What are your thoughts on this one?
I can't get a read, to be honest. I've mispicked the Sharks, I have to say, over the past few weeks. I did not see this coming. I had them tumbling out of the 8 after I think someone beat them pretty comfortably the week before the Rabbits. Maybe it was Penrith. Might have been Penrith, but the week beforehand they had a game. They played really poorly. just having a look now. But yeah, they've really turned it around. Knights are red hot. It's a Newcastle home game, isn't it?
Sorry, mate. I lost you for a bit there. I don't know if it was me or you.
You're right. Sorry. Sharks sort of capitulated against Manly. I saw them I didn't see them around after that happening. I thought they were dead. They were buried. They were going to finish 9th or 10th and miss the 8, but they've really turned it around. And against a red-hot Newcastle side, I think this is just the match of the round. This should be an absolute belter. I don't know. I don't know who I'm going to tip, to be honest. What's your read on it as a Knights fan?
Yeah, mate. Well, like I was sort of saying earlier in the year, we haven't won 7. Last time we won 7 in a row, I think I had pubes. So, we haven't been in form like this for a long time. It is a huge game as well in terms of the context of the 8. As I said, and yeah, we rolled South last week in a game that meant a fair bit, which was really promising to see with no Hastings. I think Hastings obviously on the team sheet this week, but that had heaps for us. He's been awesome for us, steering us around the park, so really good to see that. But yeah, the Sharks have sort of turned it around a bit as well, and they need to win just as badly. So it should be a cracker. Supercoach wise, I mean, can you touch KP? Can you touch Hines as a C option? I mean, there's other options probably this week, and this game could be anything. I don't think that KP can't go large, or same with Hines, but I just couldn't pick which one, and I don't think I'd want to throw the risky C at one. I think it's just could be a close game and maybe not a heap of points in it, mate.
I think I could touch KP. I could really go for KP here as a captain. Day game at home, they win their lock in and basically a home semi. And I can see points. Knights were very good defensively last week, but I can just see points being in this one. And Sharks really still struggled down that left edge. I think Gagai, Dom Young could do well as well. Ponga sweeping both sides. With his form and the numbers he's been putting up at fullback, I think he's still worth considering.
Probably fair. I mean, he shredded South Sunday afternoon. Was it Sunday afternoon? It was, wasn't it? Sunday afternoon. He was the difference, really. Early on, he tore him to shreds. So, yeah, probably fair call. I don't know what the data says historically for him against the Sharks as well, but he's probably not bad. And I think Wade Graham is an absolute sitting duck out on the edge out there. So, yeah, probably not a bad shout. Yeah, should be just looking forward to that to finish the round, though, and I'm hoping my boys can get it done because it's, as I said, a huge match in the context of the 8.
Massive. I think the other thing that I noted as well, I think whoever wins that match is guaranteed a home semi because Knights will go to 33, Sharks and Raiders will be on 32 and play each other next week. Assuming, if the Broncos beat the Raiders, then who knows from that game we'll get it. Sharks go to 34, can only be joined by the Raiders above or below, or above or equal on 34. So problem is as well, winner of this side could be up for a few restings next week.
True, yeah. I just think Cronulla show up. So I'm not, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I hope KP shreds them, but it should be a cracker. Just looking forward to it. Just
absolutely
nice to go. Hopefully the weather's good and that's a good game of footy to finish us off for round 26. But that is round 26, mate.
There we go.
So probably wrapping up here, mate. You obviously mentioned you've got a couple of trades left, and you mentioned a couple of guys you're looking at. Is this the week you burn them? Do you think you burn them this week, or are you saving them for a bit of a push for overall next week, or are you playing your grand final this week and using them, you reckon?
And overall cash comp as well that I'm tied in as well, so it's tossing up a little bit, but I think I'm more than likely going to burn them both this week. If we get news that Garrick's going to miss the next 2, I'm definitely going to be burning them both this week. I've got Latrell and Teddy at fullback, so Latrell's absolutely gone. And then probably Garrick, if not, probably Alex Johnston. I don't like the matchup next week. He's on the bye this week. I need to get to a decent 17.
Yep.
Guy that's coming in, I'm still considering a range of players, but I guess DWZ, Dane Gagai, Reece Walsh, Scott Drinkwater, Joey Manu, probably the big 5 or Jason Saab. They're probably the guys I'm really looking hard at the moment. Which one I go for, I'm not 100% sure yet. Probably we'll be tossing it up all the way up until those first games start to happen. And captaincy similar. I guess Cleary, as I mentioned, Ponga, Manu, Drinkwater, if I grab them, are going to be options to consider as well. I'm not a big fan of Munster as captaincy option, even though the matchup's good. I'd be more interested in Grant from the Storm if going that way. But I think the other guys have bigger ceilings. Where are you leaning in terms of captaincy, given the trade decisions aren't there?
Yeah, mate. I fortunately don't have that issue because I've got no trades left. I think I'll lean into the Cleary VC, and I just think it'll be too hard to get away from Joey Martin at fullback. It's obviously not rocket science, and a lot of people will probably do the same. But I just feel like, without having some of those outside backs of the Warriors, CNK, DWZ, I want to have a look at Cleary with the VC. I think I'll be leaning into Joey as captain on the Saturday evening. Just like that one too much personally, but yeah, obviously nothing too out there or crazy. Fortunately, pretty boring probably, but yeah, that's where I'm leaning.
Well, holding spot in top 1,000, we got to be vanilla.
You're really, right, mate. And I'm coming into a PB here. I'm hoping I can hold on to it. So I need to probably not be too loose. But that said, the looser you are, the more chance you have of making a bit of a move. But
That's
are you? What's your, just quickly before we wrap up? What's your best finish overall? Any chance of beating it this year?
Yeah, no hope this year. I've been playing for quite a while, pretty much since it started. I had a 33rd last year.
Oh, huge.
And 48th 5 or 6 years ago. So I've had a couple top 50s, huge, which have been good.
Nice.
Quite a few top 1,000s, but hoping to finish maybe top 200 to 300 would be a nice push, but I think top 100 is a little bit out of reach unless there's far more carnage ahead of me than I think.
Yep.
Going to need a lot of luck to get that sort of far up, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'll be playing with a pretty straight bat, to be honest, to finish the season. I don't think I'll go too punty.
Yeah, nice. So you can put a bit of cash in your pocket, mate, and be happy with that and take out that comp with your mates. It's been so elusive by the sound of it.
It's going to leave me again. I just know it.
All the best, mate. It's been nice chatting with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all the best to finish the season, mate.
You too.
All the best to all the hubbers out there, and good luck with your teams and your captaincy options. Hopefully, getting you a bit of food for thought this week. And all the best.
Pull the right string. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers, mate.